to cover from this trailer, as well as characters that the trailer left out, including Tony Dalton's villain, the Swordsman, and the other hidden villain of the series, who I think is going to be the triumphant return of Vincent D'Onofrio's Wilson Fisk, aka the Kingpin. Get hyped. The trailer begins with the Empire State Building lit up in Christmas colors, neatly establishing the time and place of the series. Now, I'm excited for a Christmas setting in this movie for a few reasons. For one, we've only ever had one Christmas story in the MCU, which was Iron Man 3, and that was more because Shane Black loves him some Christmas. But also, Christmas is about family. Clint's goal is now to find a way to leave his life of Ronin behind and just be with his family on Christmas. But he's also forming a new surrogate family with Kate Bishop, which we'll talk about later on. So when the trailer begins, he's just taking his kids into the city to see a show and have dinner. But where's Mom? Lila says,
"This is the first Christmas we've had together in years."
So hold on, I don't think this is Christmas Day and that Linda Cardellini has left the family to go around with the Grateful Dead or something. I think this is leading up to Christmas. That way, Clint will have the goal of getting home to his family. And when she says,
"In years,"
it has two meanings. One, that Clint obviously spent 5 Christmases alone while his family was blipped. But also, imagine how many Christmases Avengers, S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Hawkeye had to miss before this. And now he's worried that he'll miss their first Christmas back. And then we see that they went to Rogers the Musical, probably the kid's idea. Now this has to be poking fun at Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark, one of the most dangerous, notorious flops in Broadway history. It even featured a whole song about shoes. What Spider-Man fan wouldn't love that? Now, except in the MCU, Steve Rogers is the one whose life has been turned into a show. Not surprising, he began his career in show business as a crowd-pleasing propaganda tool. Then, in Agent Carter, we saw that his life was reimagined as a radio show.
And now it's time for the Captain America Adventure Program.
And as we saw in Far From Home, there are already films about the Snap and Tony Stark, so it's cool to see how the heroes have become integrated into the MCU's pop culture like they have in ours. But get this, at one point there was going to be a Captain America Broadway show. As Kevin Geeks Out and Atomic Age Productions on Twitter remind us, these ads ran in Marvel Comics for months in the 1980s. But I also think that it's interesting that Captain America is a commodity that's being sold, much like we saw the toys and posters of John Walker and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This tagline calls the musical a timeless story for a timeless hero, referring to his advanced age and time in World War II. And the font of the musical partially appears in stars, hinting to the climax of the show, the Chitauri invasion of New York. Then Clint sees that someone else is wearing his Ronin suit, beating up bad guys. In the comics, Clint took on the identity of Ronin after he was resurrected from the dead by Wanda Maximoff. But he was not the first person to wear the suit. In fact, there's a hint that in the MCU he stole the suit from another assassin, which we'll talk about in a bit. Then Clint flashes back to his darker times, killing the Yakuza.
What I want, you can't give me. I'll be home for Christmas.
Now notice that when he tells the kids that he'll be home for the holidays, he already has an earpiece for communication. Now why is this? I don't think he would ask any of his super friends for help, especially since this all relates to his past as a murderer. I think this takes place after he met Haley Steinfeld's Kate Bishop and they form a partnership. Then we have his custom Marvel logo, this time with a target. Okay, so now let's talk about Kate Bishop, who was formally introduced in this scene. In the comics, Kate is the daughter of a wealthy family who's introduced in the first issue of Young Avengers. During this time, Hawkeye was dead and the Avengers were disbanded, kind of like they are now. Eventually, she and Clint formed a mentor-mentee relationship, even though at times she was way more mature than him, and eventually he passed on the name of Hawkeye to her. Now, most of this is from the brilliant Matt Fraction and David Aja Hawkeye series. It's great, funny, heartfelt, perfect art. In those books, we see Clint's time between avenging. He buys an apartment building in Bed-Stuy, specifically to protect the tenants from these tracksuit-wearing goons who call everybody bro. And here it looks like Kate Bishop has a grudge against these tracksuit goons as well, and she's wearing the Ronin suit, or a copy of it. One theory is that they killed someone close to her, and since she followed the news about a vigilante killing crime lords, she took on the suit to make them afraid of her and give her an edge. There's even a hint that she might have bought the suit, which we see later in the trailer. So Clint rolls over the van to help her stop the tracksuit guys, and then confronts her. So this is probably just before he sends his family away to keep them safe. He tells her that he made a lot of enemies while wearing the suit. I mean, for years he was basically doing suicide by gangster. Next we see her showing off her archery skills using a homemade trick arrow with a tennis ball at the end of a grappling hook. It's funny that she's using trick arrows because she mocked Clint for having them in the comics. She uses this one to ring a bell that accidentally destroys the tower. And I think we'll see a lot of this kind of thing in the show. Lots of very human mistakes, especially as Kate trains. So they're standing next to these flyers, one of which says help on it. Now it wouldn't surprise me if these were here to help with blip anxiety like the flyers that we saw in Shang-Chi, a way to show that the effects of the snap are still reverberating on an everyday street level. Then there's this overhead shot of Grand Central and the overpass where the Avengers Avengers first stood together. Notice that the statue on top is still the first responder statue that we saw in Age of Ultron, replacing the statue of Mercury destroyed in the Chitauri invasion. Then the Tracksuit Mafia throws a Molotov cocktail in the building, which Clint throws right back. Again, they're probably trying to force people out of the building at the behest of their boss. There's a solid chance this could be Tony Dalton's character, the Swordsman. In the comics, he was a carnival worker who actually trained Clint as a child. Later, he became an on-again, off-again hero villain named the Swordsman, who, unrelated, was married to Mantis by Immortus, or He Who Remains in the MCU. Comics are weird, and I love them. After watching Tony Dalton chew through scenery in Better Call Saul, I'm really excited to see him play Clint's mentor / adversary in this show. Notice that the building is above a pizza place, just like it is in the comics. This is for a very, very, very important reason that I'll get into in a minute. Then we see Clint using his bow to zipline, like we saw here in the Avengers. Now, this setting is actually at the Christmas tree at 30 Rockefeller Plaza, like a few of the action clips that we see throughout the trailer. Makes sense. I mean, this is the epicenter of Christmas in New York, or actually for all of America. You can't do a Christmas show in the city without it. So this scene where he's just beat to hell and throwing on ice packs, this is why I'm actually most excited for this show. Superhero franchises need human characters, people to show us a mortal perspective, and someone to compare the superpowered people to, like if you put a normal guy in the Olympics. This poster behind him looks like it says Chitauri Dark Galaxy, another film adaptation of the Avengers' lives. So it's likely that this is Kate's place in the Tracksuit Mafia building, and she's an Avengers super fan, and this is why she became a vigilante. So then we see Clint being shot at in a tuxedo. This connects to several other scenes, like he and Kate outside of 30 Rock in formal wear. Remember, she comes from a rich family, so it's likely that she got him into a swanky event. This woman is Eleanor Bishop, Kate's mom, and this could actually be an event that she is hosting. And maybe, just maybe, she's another secret crime lord. So Kate's work as a vigilante is actually her rebelling against her mom. All of this seems to connect to the auction scene that we see in a wine cellar. In the comics, there is an arc where the villain Madame Mask is selling a tape to blackmail Clint. This could be a similar auction where proof of Clint's time as Ronin is for sale and Kate's here to help him make a bid on it. This might actually be the same auction where she bought the original Ronin suit. Although, there aren't any wine cellars in 30 Rock except for the one in Lorne Michaels' office.
Why are you wearing a tux?
It's after 6. What am I, a farmer?
This could also just be some event honoring Clint for being a member of the Avengers and saving the universe, but that's no fun. In this scene, the Tracksuit Mafia has kidnapped Clint, and Kate sweeps in to save him with the same zipline bow trick, again showing the payoff of their mentor-mentee relationship. And here is the first time we get to see her purple costume from the comics, made to mimic Hawkeye's original purple suit. And then we get this amazing glimpse of the Rogers musical, which is staged an awful lot like Hamilton, and actually the theater where it's set is across the street from Hamilton. So this set looks like the bridge leading to Grand Central where the Avengers first formed. I'm guessing that this is the finale, since the first act would have probably been set in World War II. We see a waitress like the one Steve met in an Avengers deleted scene and later saved, a Chitauri, Hawkeye, Black Widow, Tony, another Chitauri, and a hot dog vendor like this guy. And the actress playing the waitress in the top row appeared in Luke Cage, She's Your Mom. In the front row, there's a shawarma worker, Thor, Loki, I'm guessing a tourist, Steve, wearing an outfit much like his Winter Soldier suit, some guy, no idea who, tell me your thoughts in the comments, and the Hulk. Now notice that he can get in and out of his suit easily in case he needs to transform in the show. And then we see a couple more Chitauri. It's telling that Clint and the other humans are in the back, as they were in the background for most of the MCU. And then we see Lucky the pizza dog, the breakout star from the Matt Fraction series that I mentioned earlier. There was once an entire issue from Lucky's point of view, and it's one of the best instances of visual storytelling that I have ever seen. And then we see what looks like Kate as Ronin and Hawkeye at a Ren Fair, judging by these pennants in the back. I have no idea what's happening here. So this woman bathed in red light is Maya Lopez, aka the hero/villain Echo. In the comics, she was an assassin who was a villain/love interest for Daredevil. She's kind of the inverse of Matt Murdock because she's deaf. And in the Matt Fraction comics, Clint also loses his hearing. In fact, multiple people on Twitter pointed out to me that this earpiece is more than likely his hearing aid from the comics. Also in the comics, she was the original Ronin, so it's possible that during Clint's rampage, he first confronted her and then stole her suit. Now, here's another thing. In the comics, Maya was originally trained from childhood by Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, who we have seen in the MCU, played brilliantly by Vincent D'Onofrio in Daredevil. And remember the Tracksuit Mafia? In the comics, it turned out that they worked for the Kingpin as well. So all the pieces are in place to bring back the Kingpin in this show. Clint's rampage would have pissed off a crime lord like him, and he would be out for revenge.
You embarrassed me.
This might also explain the Black Widow post-credit scene.
Maybe you'd like a shot at the man responsible for your sister's death.
A lot of powerful people want Clint dead for his past sins, so the Kingpin could have paid Val to assassinate Clint. Bung's artwork on Twitter pointed out that the car they drive and the entire car chase is straight out of the comics. In fact, Damian Nava art reminded me that the whole of issue number 3 is just a car chase where Hawkeye uses all kinds of special arrows all throughout the issue. Thanks for that observation. So Kate uses a trick arrow on the tracksuit guys who are driving a moving van called Trust a Bro. In the comics, like I said earlier, these guys end every other sentence with bro. It's great. It's so good. It would actually be a great series for you to start reading if you're looking to get into comics. The title card of the show is actually taken directly from these books, which I don't think they've ever done in the MCU before. Then at the end, the two of them are doing the jump, grappling hook maneuver that Clint used here in the Avengers. I think this is part of Kate's training because the two of them are jumping in water to cushion their fall. I think a big part of this series will be her training, grooming her to be the next Hawkeye in the MCU. Clint naturally fell into a mentor, fatherly role with Wanda, giving her a pep talk.
If you step out that door, you are an Avenger.
And then coming to help her when her boyfriend got out of hand.
You want to mope, you can go to high school. You want to make amends, you get off your ass.
But what do you think? Do you want to see the Kingpin in the MCU? Who do you hope appears in this show? How will Yelena Belova fit into all this? Let me know down in the comments or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe. For Screen Crush, I'm Ryan.